I haven't used this camera setup to rant just yet, so let's do it. So, I have a PlayStation 4 Pro, along with many other people. In fact, the PlayStation 4 Pro right now is either matching or surpassing the PlayStation 4 Slim in sales. People like the idea of having the strongest console possible right now. I mean, that's the whole reason I got it, because I like to collect new tech, I like to be able to play my games in the best possible settings. Which is why I have this gaming PC, and for my Sony games, or my console-only games, I want to play it on the best possible console hardware, so that's why I have one. I feel like, though, a lot of people don't actually understand what the PlayStation 4 Pro's purpose is. If you go on the comment section of pretty much every Digital Foundry video that's talking about the PlayStation 4 Pro, or even on other videos, you'll see a lot of people complaining about the fact that the PlayStation 4 Pro focuses on higher resolution gaming rather than higher frame rates. Now, there's multiple reasons as to why the focus isn't this, and I'm going to talk about those in this video because I feel like people are kind of misunderstanding what the PlayStation 4 Pro is, why it exists. When the PlayStation 4 Pro was being designed and conceptualized, Sony basically just wanted to make a PlayStation 4 that was meant for running on higher resolution TVs. 4K TVs are picking up steam now, and people are wanting to game in higher resolutions than 1080p. I mean, 1080p looks okay, but it just doesn't fill out a 4K TV the way it should. So the PlayStation 4 Pro, at its core, is meant to be a regular old PlayStation 4 that simply takes advantage of higher resolution TVs. So that means that games are mostly going to be running at the same frame rates, with the same graphical settings, just in higher resolutions. There are some games that offer higher frame rate modes as a bonus, but this isn't a common thing, and I'm going to explain that in a minute too. See, Sony didn't want to make too much of a different console to the PlayStation 4 because they didn't want to make the already 45 million plus base PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Slim owners feel left in the dust and like their console doesn't matter anymore. So keeping the performance roughly the same between the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro just makes sense. Now, why doesn't the PlayStation 4 Pro why is the whole idea of higher performance games, why is this so rare on the PlayStation 4 Pro? Why aren't we seeing more games that offer 1080p 60 frame per second modes, or 1440p at 60 frames per second modes? Why isn't that a more common thing? Well, the simple reason is the PlayStation 4 Pro has its GPU upgrade, which makes it like roughly 2.2 times more powerful than the base PlayStation 4, but the CPU, all they did was overclock it to the point where the beefed up cooling that was already inside the system could handle it. See, the PlayStation 4 Pro has a bigger cooling system than the original PlayStation 4, which is why it's a little bit bigger and heavier, despite the fact that even the 2.2 times or whatever the multiplier is GPU only produces about the same amount of heat as the base PlayStation 4. Now, this allowed them to clock up the CPU to around 2.2 gigahertz instead of 1.6. But to anybody who has overclocked PC CPUs, including me, you know that a small overclock like that isn't really going to give much of a huge performance boost. It may smooth some things out in terms of like physics or maybe even just your base frame rate altogether, but it's not going to make a huge difference. And what's limiting a lot of these games from being 1080p 60 frames per second games is the CPU inside the system. I'm sorry, but the CPU in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One is very, very weak. It's pretty much just a glorified tablet CPU and 2 quad cores put together to make 8 cores. I'm wondering why they didn't make a more powerful quad-core CPU instead of putting in that 8-core. I'm guessing they just used whatever AMD offered them. But it's simply the CPU bottlenecking that is not allowing the system to reach its 60 frame per second potential that people want. Trust me, I'm sure that if Sony and other developers could offer 60 frame per second modes as an option in all of their games, they would be doing it. But because when they probably unlock the frame rate with the PlayStation 4 Pro, they're probably only getting around frame rates maybe in the 30s, 40s, maybe the 50s, and if they can't do a 60 frame per second lock in a game, usually what happens is they just cap it at 30 frames per second and call it a day. In fact, I would guarantee that a lot of games like Horizon Zero Dawn, or even third-party games like Watch Dogs 2, if they were left at an unlocked frame rate, you'd probably see them running in like the 40s on the PlayStation 4 Pro. But they cap it at 30 because they don't want it to be an inconsistent experience. They want to keep it consistent. I know a lot of people will make the argument that, oh, we should be able to choose what we want. Well, if that's your mindset, then build a PC or get a PC. The whole point of the PC is to have freedom in how you play your games. Consoles aren't meant for that. They're meant for people who just want to put their games in and they just want to play their games. No tweaking, no freedom, very little freedom. They don't care. Whatever. That's what the console's meant for. So if you want those 60 frame per second modes, you can build a PC that squashes the PS4 Pro for around the same price. So that's definitely what I recommend doing. I know that was a pretty docile rant, I didn't really get angry or anything, but I wanted to just kind of explain things. And I guarantee, you know what, I guarantee you that the Xbox Project Scorpio is going to be treated pretty differently from the PlayStation 4 Pro. I mean, we are seeing them saying that they want to make it so that all Xbox One Scorpio games also run on the Xbox One because they don't want to leave the Xbox One in the dust. But the Scorpio's increase in power is pretty significant compared to the original Xbox One. Definitely more so than the PS4 Pro compared to the PS4. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Xbox One Project Scorpio also offers more higher frame rate modes compared to what the PS4 Pro offers. However, based on what we're seeing, the thing seems to have the same Jaguar CPU, or not a huge upgraded CPU, so that might also have the same problems. You might see a lot of 1440p, 1800p, 2160p, 30 frame per second games inside that thing, simply because the CPU can't handle 60 frames per second in a lot of those games. So regardless of that, I'm still going to be getting a Project Scorpio when it comes out. As I said, I like to collect all the newest tech, and for any games that aren't released on PC for a while, I want to be able to play them in the best possible settings, and obviously right now that's the PlayStation 4 Pro, but it's going to be Project Scorpio in a bit too. Like, when Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out, we don't know when that thing's going to come to PC. Now, if Rockstar releases it, like, 6 months later, then I'm just going to wait. I'd rather play it on the PC. But if it ends up being like a year and a half, like GTA 5, I'm going to play it on the Scorpio, because I want to play that game. Rockstar is known for making people double dip. Same thing with Final Fantasy 15. We don't actually know when that game's coming to PC either, and right now I have it on the PS4 Pro, but, you know, that game's probably going to get a patch for the Scorpio. In fact, it would surprise me if it didn't. And if we get no announcement of a PC release by the time Scorpio comes out, I'm probably going to get it on Scorpio, because screw it, why not? I guess I have too much extra money that I like to waste on technology. So that's going to be it for this video. Like I always say, please discuss this in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. What do you think? How do you think Scorpio is going to treat these games? And what do you think about mid-cycle upgrades like the PlayStation 4 Pro? Should they be upgrading the CPU just as much as the GPU and not worrying too much about cost to give people the higher frame rates, or should they just focus on the GPU and keep it consistent with the original console and only offer the higher performance modes if the thing is being GPU bottlenecked on the original PS4? So that'll be it. If you liked this video, drop me a like, and if you really liked this video, or if you just think I'm a really nice guy, hit the subscribe button, keep up to date, and I'll see you on the next video.